So the release date for Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 may have just been revealed, and it's probably way longer than you would expect. So Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 has been out for almost 2 months at this point, and now people are obviously wondering about Chapter 4. And there's a lot of questions surrounding this game, the main three being where is it going to take place, who's the villain going to be, and when is this game going to eventually release. I'm pretty sure release dates are probably the most popular thing to wonder about for games or movies or shows, so it's pretty expected that people are wondering when is this game going to come out. But recently we got more news about the release date, and how it's actually going to be longer than we expected. And the main reason for this is because there's actually something going on at Mob Games that's actually been going on for a couple months now, and it actually does tie into the possible delay of Poppy Playtime Chapter 4, but something that I need to mention before I tell you guys about that is that only a few days after Chapter 3 came out, Zach Bellinger, the CEO of Mob Games, in their Discord server, he said that they're going full steam ahead on Chapter 4's development, and he might not be talking about just Chapter 4, he could also be referring to the Poppy Playtime movie, maybe even Project Playtime. The next phase is most likely coming out in the next few months, but with them saying that they're going full steam ahead, that made us think that Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 is going to come out a lot sooner than we would expect, because only a few days before that, we got news that Chapter 3 only had a development time of 8 months, and while the time between Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 was almost 2 years, they revealed that they started work on it last year in May. And in Chapter 3, people pointed out a poster that we saw on the wall, hinting at a potential Playtime Co. theme park for Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. And that was pretty much them telling us that they already know where Poppy Playtime 4 is going to take place, so all the signs that there was pointing to Chapter 4 coming out really soon. I'm not saying like 2024 soon, maybe like early to mid 2025. In one of my previous videos, I talked about my release date prediction for Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 when we had all this news, and I expected sometime in mid 2025, maybe the first teaser coming out this summer, maybe the trailer coming out in early 2025, with the game leading to drop in maybe summer of 2025. I thought at the latest it would be Halloween 2025, maybe on the 4-year anniversary of Chapter 1, but now let's get into the actual interesting stuff. Why do I think that Chapter 4 is going to come out in a really long time? And what happened at Mob Games to possibly create a delay? Well, within the first week of Chapter 3 coming out, we got news that one of the main people at Mob Games left the company, and while you might think that this is not a huge deal at first, this was one of the main directors for Poppy Playtime Chapters 1, 2, and 3, and while I didn't really think that this was going to slow down development on Chapter 4, I thought that since it might be a new director, Chapter 4 might feel different from Chapter 3, 2, and 1, but now it's pretty much a weekly tradition at this point, to where a new Mob Games employee just leaves the company. It happened with this guy named Micah, this guy named John, and now, only a couple days ago, a new one named Isaac left, and he was another director for Poppy Playtime Chapters 1, 2, and 3, so Mob Games have obviously been losing a lot of people in their company recently, and if 1 or 2 people leave, that's not really going to slow down development at all, especially if they're going full steam ahead like Zach Bellinger said. But when you have someone at your company leaving almost every week, that's definitely going to have an effect on Chapter 4. But what we need to figure out is why these people are leaving Mob Games in the first place. And while most of them said goodbye tweets and they talked about how working at Mob Games was a fun time, but now they're moving on to work on other things, most of them moving on to make animations. And while from the way they're talking it sounds like they had a really fun time working at Mob Games, but we recently got news that that might not be the case. See, there's a website called Glassdoor.com, and people that leave companies that they worked at can leave reviews on what it was like working at that company. And you can also do the same thing for Mob Games. And a lot of people that worked at Mob Games have left reviews on Glassdoor talking about their time there. But yeah, I want to give a shout out to Poppy Playtime News and City on Twitter, because without them I probably wouldn't have known about this. But yeah, here, I'm going to read some of the reviews on the website from ex-Mob Games employees. Pros: coworkers that are in the trenches with you are passionate and want to create great things. Cons: the CEO and executive leadership are either abusive, negligent, and/or will fire employees for simply getting on their bad side, thus leading to an overall sense of dread and fear as to who is going to get fired next. You can do everything right, but if they just don't like you, they will find a reason to get rid of you eventually. Executive leadership is also completely disconnected with what our audience wants, likes, and is really only concerned with what will make them the most money in the immediate future. Pros: many amazing team members are clearly passionate and a joy to work with. They often hire entry-level talented people, so it can be a jumping-off point. Cons: work culture described by director as, "This is a place that has built-in crunch. We need people who like to work." That pretty much means that their employees are forced to rush under crunch time, basically meaning some stuff might be rushed, which that actually might explain the delay we had for Chapter 3. Maybe since they started in May and were expected to finish by the end of the year, they didn't have enough time, so they had to delay it about a month. No accountability for mistakes made by longtime staff, senior and leads with less than 3 years and no leadership skills, fear of being fired, lack of how games are made by game team leadership, nonsensical deadlines, lack of growth or training for staff, no end-of-year bonus or raise. Now, I'm not going to read all the reviews because there really is enough for me to make this video an hour long, and not all of them are really bad. I just wanted to point out the ones that most people are talking about, and the main issues I see are almost impossible deadlines for the employees, and the CEO, Zach Bellinger, being abusive. Now, Zach, I don't know if you're watching this video, there's no really proof of anyone being abusive at mob games. It's really just people saying, oh, you have to trust me. I personally don't think that some of this stuff is real, but I kind of do believe them on the deadlines part, because release dates for Poppy Playtime have always been weird. And it was mostly reviews about Zach Bellinger, not Seth Bellinger, the co-CEO. Well, he's technically not a CEO, but he also works at the company, and he was one of the founders. So there's no really hate to Seth Bellinger, and I'm not giving hate to Zach, I'm just reading what people are saying. But most pros in the reviews were talking about people that worked at the company, like other employees, and how they're a joy to work with. But here are my last thoughts on this until I get into some more news. I don't know if any of this is true about mob games. It would be a pretty convenient explanation to why so many people are leaving the company, but then that doesn't explain why all those people that are leaving messages saying that they had so much fun working at mob games. Now, they could obviously just be lying, or mob games told them to say that, but I'm still going to make videos about mob games and Poppy Playtime. Even if mob games is a bad company, I still enjoy Poppy Playtime. But now what I need to bring up is, how does this affect the release date for Chapter 4? So far, I haven't really talked about that at all, so you could just consider this video clickbait. But with all these new employees leaving the company, and mob games being looked at in a bad light right now, could have a very big effect on Chapter 4, possibly leading it to be canceled. Now, I don't think it'll be canceled, but it'll definitely be pushed back. But we haven't really gotten any release dates yet, so it's not technically a delay. But my original thought of mid-2025 has changed to maybe early 2026, maybe even mid-2026, and at the latest, Halloween 2026. And I think there's no way we're going into 2027 or 2028. They still have a bunch of employees at Mob Games, and they have 2 separate teams for Project Playtime and actual chapters of Poppy Playtime. And I'm not saying I hope Chapter 4 is released in 2026. I would like it to be earlier, but as long as they make the game good, I'm fine with that. But I have one more piece of news to share with you guys before you click off. But about 2 weeks ago at this point, Zach Bellinger made a chat in the Discord, which eventually ended up getting deleted a couple hours later. I don't even think it was hours, I think it was like 5 minutes. And I wasn't in the Discord when he posted that message, so I didn't get to see it. So when I saw that he had deleted a message, I kind of just looked over it. I didn't really even mention it in my video, but people are saying that they screenshotted the original message, and it says this. So the message is talking about how the prototype is pretty much Palpatine from Star Wars, and Huggy Wuggy is pretty much Darth Vader from Star Wars. And then he said, to be honest, Seth probably hates me for making these analogies. I always failed those parts of the tests. Now, I've never seen Star Wars, so I don't know much about these characters, so I had to do a little research, but it talks about how he treats Darth Vader like a servant. Palpatine treats Vader poorly and punishes him and doesn't show him the same kindness he did before. And Palpatine one time summoned Darth Vader to torture Luke Skywalker, leaving him limbless. So Darth Vader is pretty much a servant to Palpatine, meaning that Huggy Wuggy is a servant to the prototype. Now, there's a big reason why this could have gotten deleted. Maybe someone at Mob Games said, hey, that's revealing way too much, you gotta delete that. Or maybe Zach himself thought that. And this is not confirmation that this was the real message, but now that's 2 characters we know that serves the prototype. Catnap and Huggy Wuggy. So it's pretty safe to say that almost all the monsters in the factory are almost confirmed to serve the prototype, and they probably listened to him in his idea of the Hour of Joy. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up all the news in this video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy, please leave a like, it would really help support the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.